To the squares, this was Damnation Alley. To hell, Tanner, this was still the parking lot.
This is I Don't Even Own a Television, Damnation Alley, because we're squares.
Please do not make jokes when I am drinking.
Sorry.
1, 2, 3. There are books that are good, there are books that are bad. There's some books so fucking awful you wish you never had read them at all. 'Cause a novel can ruin your life. Hey buddy, I don't even own a television.
Greetings. Welcome to I Don't Even Own a Television, the only book podcast that always drives with one hand while eating a corned beef sandwich. My name is J.W. Heck Friedman.
Yeah, and I'm Chris Tarnation.
And we're talking about a Roger Zelazny book that doesn't have anything to do with tights, wizardry, or, I don't know, regal lineages. It's called Damnation Alley.
And I think we're both regretting it a tiny bit. Where's the tights? I found myself asking.
Where's Ransom, anyway? What's that ne'er-do-well up to?
Is even one person going to pick up a goddamned loot?
Yeah. Longtime listeners of the show will know Roger Zelazny is like the one fantasy author I can stand. It turns out he also wrote some forays into the world of sci-fi and things like that. And it turns out I can stand those a lot less, and this is one of them. So, before we get too deep, I do want to mention we accidentally picked a very topical book. And so I just want to warn people ahead of time that the plot of this book revolves around a bunch of things that I wish it didn't, which include a quarantine, a nationwide quarantine, police brutality, and just some kind of shit-kicking imagery I'm not a huge fan of. So if you're feeling sensitive right now, this might not be the best episode to listen to. Totally understand. I had a couple moments with this book where I felt a little like, oh gosh, this is too real. So, and that's saying a lot.
Yeah, as a piece of escapist literature, it kind of fails to escape the present moment, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's a little too close to home to truly be escapist, and there's definitely stuff that will remind you of things that are going on in the world right now. So just, be aware. We're going to have to talk about them. I wouldn't say that this book is necessarily more awful than most other books in its genre. It just happens to be a really bad time to talk about it. So we have awesome timing. And in addition to that, we read an awesome book about a guy whose name is Hell Tanner.
Hell Tanner. Don't be afraid to put a little mustard on it when you say it, you know?
Sorry, his name is Hell Tanner. And why is he named Hell?
Well, Jay, it's what his father said when his mother told him she was pregnant. Add in Fonzie Waka Waka noises here.
Yeah. Now would be a good time to mention this book was written in 1967, so you kind of have to give it a little bit of credit for its dumb sense of humor, but there's a lot of stuff, too, that won't excuse, which you will see as we proceed in our discussion.
For sure.
But, that joke right there, hoo boy.
All I can say about it is a little bit better than if his name were I'm outta here, Tanner.
Yeah, or we're getting a divorce, Tanner. That would have been pretty awful, too.
Jesus Christ.
I gotta say, I've heard of some edgy character names before, but Hell really takes the cake. Like, that's like Spider Jerusalem times 10.
Yeah. Can I tell you the other thing that I find upsetting about his name, though, Jay?
Sure.
I have what I can only describe as a dark suspicion that his last name is a visual joke because two N's next to each other look a little bit like another letter. And I think it's supposed to make you think that really what and who Hell Tanner is is in this nightmarish post-apocalyptic land a hell tamer.
I thought you were going to say he was related to the Full House family.
Yeah, this is about, the fourth entry in the series when things really start to fall apart for your average movie series. They're like, well, we did the movie, the sequel, and the prequel, and now we've kind of exhausted the universe. What if a plague? Yeah, that would make sense.
I kind of thought of it as like a really grimdark version of Cannonball Run, or like Every Which Way But Loose, or one of those sort of movies, Smokey and the Bandit, but extra grimdark.
Well, it is extremely grimdark, Cannonball Run, and congratulations, Jay, you've just won Plot in 60 Seconds. But maybe I should give it a shot.
Yeah, let's do that. Here's a song.
You got 60 seconds. Scream in the shower. 60 seconds. Don't leave nothing out. You got 60 seconds. Open your mouth and tell them what the goddamn book's about. Okay, so, yeah, I did kind of spoil it, huh? But here we go. Whenever you're ready, let me know, and you'll have 60 seconds to try to summarize the plot of this book, which I have the utmost faith that you'll be able to do.
Thanks, buddy. I'm ready.
All right. Begin.
Ass-kicking, tough, gruff dude and mean guy Hell Tanner is gonna drive across a post-apocalyptic America where the cities are giant radioactive craters, the animals are giant radioactive critters, and the skies are filled with giant radioactive cracks that occasionally drop debris, gravel, fish, shit like that. And there seem to be some permanent ocean tornadoes? It's not entirely clear. Anyway, its escape from New York goes on a road trip, and I'm therefore extremely here for it. Post-apocalypse in a broken world with a badass driving a sick van with rocket launchers and flamethrowers and razor blades, and he's fighting biker gangs and big spiders and bad weather. And honestly, I think those are his only impediments, really, because this book is like 150 pages long max.
Uh-huh.
He loses like 2 days at one point because he gets to his murder van, he gets it stuck in the mud. But it turns out why he's doing this is because he has to deliver serum to Boston to fix a plague, and I have once again accidentally committed the sin of topicality, when everything topical is actively intolerable. And I'm sorry, and I probably don't get to pitch books for the show anymore. Anyway, a hardened criminal who hates everyone drives across the country, smokes a lot of cigarettes, beats up his co-pilot, picks up a foxy biker whose gang he machine guns down before getting her killed, and finally successfully delivers the serum to Boston, hangs around long enough to be a dick about a statue erected in his honor, then pieces out at the end.
So you actually went over.
No
misplaced my faith.
God damn it.
Yeah. You digressed there. You gotta stay on track, just like Hell Tanner. Can't digress. Can't
But
take the scenic route. You gotta just plow right through that shit.
But like Roger Zelazny writing a 157-page book, surely I would not have done any digressing whatsoever. You know, Jay, the word digression itself reminds me of a funny story. So I was on tour with my band Digression, and
yeah, we were playing in a lot of basements, recording a lot of albums in basements. Just doing hardcore things like in the 80s. Sorry. Spending a lot of time making fun of one particular critical tweet, and I feel like kind of a jerk about it. But it's one of the few times where, like, my first instinct was to write back something that literally would have sounded like, I'm not mad at this, I'm actually laughing.
Right.
But I actually was laughing. Anyway, that's why I don't read the Twitter that much these days.
Very, very wise. Never read the tweets. Anyway, so yeah, that's kind of the book, and it's a little hard to describe because I think it's good in that kind of captures the feeling of a long road trip where things are happening, but at the same time, kind of nothing is happening.
Yeah, and, like, don't get it twisted. Like, this is not Cormac McCarthy. Like, this is very, like, much closer to, like, a movie like Megaforce. You know, there's a lot of these, you know, souped-up vehicles with super weapons, and, you know, your hero swears and hates everything, and it's just, it's something else. I mean, although I guess the hero kind of swears and hates everything, too, so...
Right, but in The Road, is there at any point a scene where our protagonist has to fire a flamethrower at a giant spider web? No.
I don't believe so.
Checkmate, McCarthy.
I think the only time I've ever encountered that is in a video game. This is a really video gamey book, and I'm going to get into a bit of that later, but I think that this book was read by a lot of people who made video games in the early to late 90s in their childhood. Because, like, there is so much of this in the modern video game world, like, still to this day. But anyway, a couple small things.
Yeah.
I want to talk about one sentence in depth because it just bothered me. So get ready as we dissect and diagram a sentence. Not really, but one of the opening things you read in this book is, he raised his goggles and looked at the world through crap-colored glasses, which was pretty much the way he looked at it without them, too. So think really hard about why that sentence doesn't work.
Well, you see, Jay... So some people, Jay, are said to look at the world through rose-colored. Glenn, can you hear me tap dancing? Because I got nothing. Like,
it just bugs me because it basically says when he's like, if you take that sentence at face value, it says he put on his goggles and looked at the world through crap-colored glasses, which was pretty much the way that he looked at it without them too. So without his goggles, he's looking at the world through crap-colored goggles. I don't know, that just bugged the shit out of me.
Well, I mean...
I get what he's trying to say. He's saying that he's a pessimist and he's always got a crap-colored view of things. But that sentence itself just feels like an editor should have bounced it back. Like, I don't know why it jumped out at me, but it infuriated me at the time.
Well, there's two things wrong with the sentence. And one is, it's a really pedestrian inversion of a cliche, and inverting a cliche is invoking a cliche, and it's not that fun. But the second thing wrong with it is that it's on page, 3. And if you're not careful, it will trick you into thinking that this book has some kind of sense of humor about itself. And I cannot stress this strongly enough. No, it doesn't.
No, not at all.
And
yeah, this book is 100%, like, I pictured Roger Zelazny, like, writing this book with sunglasses on.
Well, right. Okay, but that's where I actually disagree with you slightly. As a glassesman myself, a man of the short-sighted variety, the nearsighted, if you will, kind of fellow, I have certainly put goggles on over my glasses in such wicked cool places as biology class and maybe chemistry class once. So that kind of resonated with me, but then it falls down a little bit more because I'm like, so he's wearing sunglasses. Okay, that's pretty badass, I guess. Except they're brown sunglasses. And that's not very cool.
No, that's cop shit. Like, nobody wears brown sunglasses but fucking cops.
I mean, and this guy we know, I think I forgot to mention this in Plottin' 60 somehow. Well, I guess it was because I only had 60 seconds. But he's the last of the Hell's Angels, who are only ever called the last of the Angels, because Hell Tanner might be an angel who's here to be the Hell tamer.
You thought about this book way too much, man.
Well, I don't think that's quite true, but I think, as we will get to in high points and low points, I may have thought about this book in a different condition than you have. But anyway, as the last of the angels, he's resolutely anti-cop. So yeah, he would not be wearing no brown shades, man.
Yeah. I do just want to mention that this is a book that tries to make trucker speed sound glamorous, and I think that's the first time I've ever encountered that.
Apparently,
they give him a car. They keep calling it, but it sounds way more like a bitchin' RV or something like that. I'll get more into that later. But, like, it has a huge supply of, pills to keep them awake, which they're obviously talking about, like, Dexies or something like that.
Yeah.
And, like, it's like he popped one and he felt great. It's like that. I don't know anyone who's ever had a fun time on, like, the kind of speed that you buy at 7-Eleven. Like,
I mean,
so,
you know me. You didn't know the guy who worked at the bar across from the convenience store I worked at before getting fired at one point, who first sold me a bunch of trucker speed, White Crosses, for the win.
Oh, the old White Cross.
Hell yeah. And then, our relationship thus established asked me if I wanted to come over and watch Bram Stoker's Dracula, which I did, until about halfway through, and I realized that we had very different takes on the nature of this particular interaction, and I politely excused myself.
Gotcha. Well, I mean, at least you got some cool trucker speed out of it, because, man, that stuff is great.
Yeah, it was awesome. But sadly, I think I lost a friend that day, and that was a little sad.
That is sad, but I mean, you got to grit your teeth for like 18 hours straight, so that's pretty awesome.
Oh, I had months worth of that shit. It was great.
Clenching your jaw, shooting giant bats. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
So, yeah, I think as we made pretty clear by now, this book kind of feels like it was written specifically for 14-year-old boys with attitude problems.
Yeah, science fiction readers.
Yeah. Oh, man. I was going to say, I only fit one of those criteria, so I'm not sure if I was approaching it from the right frame of mind. I will admit that. So, as you said earlier, when we get into high points, low points, you were going to talk a little bit more about that and the frame of mind that we approached this book from. So, why don't we do that now with a little jingle?
High points are high, and low points are low. High points, low points, get ready to go.
That's the good stuff right there.
Before we get into it, there's something I did want to ask you to do that I totally forgot. There's a sentence in this book.
Oh, no.
He lit another cigarette and began to curse, slowly, softly, and without emotion.
Yeah.
Can you do that? Can you do that for the folks at home?
I don't have a cigarette on me, but I'm going to make up for it. Give me 1 second.
Is that a candy cigarette?
No, this is going to be so worth the wait, everybody. All right. Are we ready?
Yeah, I'm ready.
Hell, piss, shit, poopy, damn, crud, crapola, cram it. Go do something unspeakable to yourself. More poop.
There you go.
Butts. Asses.
That just seemed such a weird fucking sentence.
Yeah, what Roger Zelazny thinks cursing is and is like is a little bit, I would say, orthogonal to what I think cursing is and is like, because that's not the only time he does it. It's definitely the best time he does it in the course of this book. And by the way, Mom, if you're listening, you might want to skip ahead 30 seconds, but did I just grab a Zippo and light a joint on air? Well, Yes. Yes, I did.
That's what I thought. I knew it was either that or like you had just decided to run to the corner store real fast and start a new bad habit.
Right.
I don't know. Or pick up an old one. Anyway, high points, low points. We should do that.
We should do that.
So let's start out with the old compliment sandwich here. Going to do some high points first. I'll go ahead and go first. I think the world building is pretty neat in this book, even though like post-apocalyptic is a pretty trite cliche. I think Zelazny does a good job describing neat shit in an interesting way. Like any description of the natural phenomenon that occurs in the wake of a nuclear war is done in a way that's relatively fun to read and generally sounds like the cover of a prog rock album. This is kind of like a road trip through a Roger Dean painting, and I can appreciate that a great deal. I expected Tarkus to appear at any minute, and that's a positive. So, yeah, that's my first high point.
Hey, man, did you consider that he was driving Tarkus?
Oh, shit.
How much better is this book now that you're digitally replacing his battle wagon with the weaponized armadillo that is Tarkus?
Yeah, from relatively obscure Emerson, Lake and Palmer record, I believe.
And by relatively obscure, you mean basically unlistenable, but hey, why split
its
hairs?
cover is infinitely memeable, and you've definitely seen it. It's like a robot armadillo with tank treads.
Except, if that doesn't sound cool to you, you're wrong, and it's still cool. And if it does sound cool to you, you're right. But it probably is cooler than even you're imagining.
Yeah.
So we don't usually talk about the high points in advance, and that's why sometimes things like this happen where we're very synced and seem to be saying the same thing. But when Zelazny gets weird, I really like it. And
yeah,
like, I'm not saying that the man who wrote this in 1967 and then padded it out to arguably novel length in 1969 was extremely weeded out when he did so. But does this 150-page book have multiple digressions? Yes. Does it have at least one multi-page psychedelic sky description? Yes. Does it have a multi-page single sentence? Also, yes. Does that multi-page single sentence about how bad everything is directly address the reader qua reader? Also, you bet your sweet bippy it does. But just in case you're not quite picking up the psychedelic vibes that Mr. Zelazny is laying down, I'd like to read you a brief passage.
Oh, good.
His mind was an expanding bubble, its surfaces like the view screens, registering everything about him. He felt the flow of the air within the cab, and the upward pressure of the pedal upon his foot. His throat seemed dry, but it didn't matter. His eyes felt gooey at their inside corners, but he didn't wipe them. He roared across the pocked plains of Kansas. This man was so high.
He was. When morning came many hours later, he took a pill to keep himself alert and listened to the screaming of the wind. The sun rose up like molten silver to his right, and the third of the sky grew amber and was laced with fine lines like cobwebs. The desert was topaz beneath it, and the brown curtain of dust that hung continuously at his back, pierced only by the 8 shafts of the other car's lights, took on a pinkish tone as the sun grew a bright red corona and the shadows fled to the west. He dimmed his lights as he passed an orange cactus shaped like a toadstool and perhaps 50 feet in diameter. I think I had that poster in high school, the blacklight poster. It was pretty rad.
Oh, and it doesn't even stop there. The next sentence of what you read is literally, giant bats fled south, and far ahead he saw a wide waterfall descending from the heavens. Like, the only thing that he doesn't describe is Mr. Natural taking a big step out of the background.
Yeah.
Keep on trucking, hell!
His bong was shaped like an alien head and sent chills down the tube.
So yeah, we we've definitely put the high in high points.
Yeah, so we got to get to low points here, and I think I'm gonna be the one to bring this up.
Yep.
Yeah, our hero is definitely supposed to be a badass biker type, but like on the second page of the book, it talks about how much he misses his swastika emblem. Apparently, that was something he wore on his jacket before he went to jail. And he carries around what he describes as an SS dagger that he keeps in his boot. Later on, the ornate Totemkampf on the SS dagger is lovingly described in a section that takes up about half of a page. So, yeah, I had to nope out of that pretty hard.
Yep.
I know that biker culture has at times been inextricably linked with Nazi imagery for shock value alone, much like early bad punk rock was, but I still don't like it, and I still think it's stupid, and I don't want to read it. Thanks.
Yeah, no, strong fucking agree. Like, I know he's supposed to be a truly non-heroic, unpleasant anti-hero, but it still just sucks to spend time with that guy. I didn't like it. So, yeah, strong same. So, we've mentioned that there's some digressions, and these digressions are of the horror novel type, where you step away from your main character and get introduced to somebody who's really only there for one kind of set-piece scene, which, in classic fashion, tends to end with their doom. And that is doom spelled D-U-M-B, by the way. And at one point, yeah, and at one point we meet a doctor and nurse in Boston, and we get the following exchange. The doctor seems tired, so the nurse says something like, "Do you want to come into this room with me?" And then they have the following little conversation. He kissed her then, and the room was dark and antiseptic around them. "You're the kind of people we need," he said, and she shook her head. "I'm just a nurse. Why don't you sleep now?" Now, setting aside the bad porn movie vibes of this scene, any doctor... Well, sorry, it's not the doctor's fault. No nurse would ever, under any circumstance, say, "I'm just a nurse."
It's a really good point. I mean, that's a very important job.
Yeah. Like...
and it's one people take very seriously as part of their identity because they're doing something that requires a lot of training and is very important for society.
Yeah. Like, anyway, it just... Occasionally, Zelazny, who I understand, he's an imaginative person, he's writing speculative fiction, but still, when you do it in a grounded, recognizably shared, world, you have the duty to get it fucking right, and even in 1967, that just gets it so badly wrong. That took me out of the book more than trying to figure out, okay, so... radiation has ruined the world, so the predators have less food and are therefore real big.
Yeah, and this happened over the course of less than one generation of human beings.
Oh yeah, it's like 30 years.
The shit out of me, but it's not enough to qualify as a low point. But let me tell you a little something about evolution, Mr. Zelazny. It doesn't work that fast.
That's a really good
Bats
point. I didn't catch that.
Suddenly... I mean, I guess maybe you could say they were, like, mutated due to radiation. That would be your get-out-of-jail-free card, I guess.
Well, except that mutation is stuff that gets passed on by reproduction. But I actually like comic book mutation, where you get exposed to radiation and all of a sudden, like, when you get angry, you turn green and rip your shirt off.
That's my secret, Captain. I'm always doing low points.
As opposed to me, when I get angry, I get nude and log back onto the internet to be bright red and furious.
Yeah, let's move on to second low points here, because this, I think, just really... Mine's going to be short because it echoes a lot of what you've just said. Between your comment and your actual official low point. I'm just really not into the vibe at work here. Like, our hero gradually develops some form of a conscience, but from the get-go, he's an unrepentant scumbag, and he commits random acts of violence for fun, like, throwing rocks at birds. He behaves like a caveman to a number of women, and apparently enjoys collecting Nazi memorabilia. So, like, the whole concept of fucked up Nazi motorcycle murder man with a heart of gold is a really tough one for me as a grown adult to swallow. I just didn't like spending time with the guy. He is straight up and down an asshole. And it doesn't matter if he's crossing the country. Sorry, I keep saying crossing the country, crossing what used to be the country, because now we have the nation of California and the nation of Boston. So he's crossing the continent to bring life-saving medicine. I mean, that's great. That's awesome. He's still a fucking jerk. And he's doing it against his will.
Yeah, there's a great sentence in here, which unfortunately will sound like it's making light of the valid criticism you just made, but I don't mean it that way. It's just a great sentence that the people who should not read this book need to hear. And that sentence is probably the manliest thing I've ever read, and by that I mean people who have been socialized to be a man. Nobody had ever asked him to do anything important before, and he hoped that nobody ever would again.
Especially if it involved dishes or cooking.
Yeah, I mean, like, again, that could trick you into thinking that there's a sense of humor at play here, but no, at the time he says that, he means that.
A lot of his dialogue could be Brock Sampson from Venture Brothers, but it's played completely not for laughs.
Yeah.
It is 100% serious. It's like, yeah. This book doesn't realize that it's funny, which is almost a high point, I feel like.
I mean, it is a little aggressively straight-faced, sure.
So what's your second low point there?
This is the most predictable thing I've ever said, but... So I did a lot of driving last week. We went camping. And the amount of time it takes him to go places drove me completely nuts. Like, he goes from basically LA, which is inexplicably not a radioactive wasteland, to Salt Lake City, ditto, in about the same amount of time it takes him to drive the last 30 miles into Boston. And
yeah.
Like, I understand that on one hand, I didn't have huge spiders or mutant man-sized hellbats to contend with, but I read this book, and I did not see Hell Tanner run into even one banana slug outside his tent. So who's really the tough guy here? I submit it's me.
I just looked it up. I had always assumed Zelazny was English, and I thought maybe this was just kind of a, one of those things that you don't really know about, like geometry. Like, I couldn't tell you how far Cambridge is from, Manchester by the Sea or whatever. But, like, nope, turns out he's American. He has no excuse.
Yeah.
So, yeah. That is really frustrating. I moved from Florida to California, and I took time to stay at hotels to sleep, and it took me about 4.5 days.
I mean, the roads are admittedly bad. He has to do some off-roading, but, like, yeah, he displays a distressing lack of stick-to-itiveness. He takes a lot of naps, despite the number of pills he has, and an onboard coffee maker that is so fancy he has to clean it between uses. This is not a K-cup. This is like a real coffee maker that he's got.
He's got a Chemex back there.
Yeah, exactly. He's doing a little pour over. He's got the pourer with the digital thermometer in the top, so he knows that the water's exactly the right temperature.
It all makes sense. He's got a surly attitude, knuckle tattoos, and a fancy coffee maker. This is just a book about a pissed off barista, isn't it?
Oh my god.
Barista.
The serum he's delivering is the best cold brew Boston's ever had.
But you should see his foam art. It's all swastikas. Sorry. Oh, okay. I think we need to end with high points. And you just mentioned one of them basically. So this will roll right into it. This dude's car is fucking insane. It's definitely not a car. First of all, like, it's large enough to contain a refrigerator and a bathroom. It has like 6,000 guns and rocket launchers and flamethrowers and fucking razor wings that can come out and slice things up. And it immediately reminded me of like every cool action figure I wanted as a kid.
Yeah.
You know, like the action figure play sets that would come with a cool vehicle that like transformed. Like, what was that show, Mask? Where it's like, yeah, it's like, oh, this car turns into an airplane or whatever. Like, it just reminded me of that. And it is. It's like an 8-year-old's idea of the world's coolest RV. And I really, I dug it. The only thing that would have made it cooler is if they described exactly what kind of wizard was painted on the side.
Yeah, but it's fun to leave that for the audience, give them a way to get involved. And honestly, Jay, the imagination is a muscle, and we all need to work at it.
That's true. In my mind, it was a robot wizard.
Whoa!
So, maybe riding a surfboard through space while aliens looked on, and like maybe a sexy alien babe is playing a guitar solo in the background. And I love thinking about custom vans.
It's pretty much the only thing that's keeping me going. Yeah, so just a high point that in no way adequately follows yours. I really
Wait. Quick question.
Yeah.
Do you think his van or car, whatever it is, had shag carpeting or not?
So, no and yes. Yes in my fantasies. No, for the same reason that it probably didn't have any cool murals painted on the side, because this is a government-owned van.
Oh, yeah, that's true. It's not his personal property.
Yeah.
He didn't get a chance to really put his mark on it.
Yeah, so it doesn't have the maroon shag that he would insist on and probably tear out, I don't know, some of the fuel cell section to put in the waterbed.
Yeah, and like a beaded curtain that separates the driving section from the fucking section.
You gotta have the beaded curtain, Jay.
So what's your last high point?
So, I mean, for me, I just can't resist the template of this book. Solitary, unhappy person has to sacrifice for the greater good and along the way attains a not inconsiderable amount of self-knowledge. That's just always a winner in my book. So even though there's a lot wrong with it, there's a lot wrong with it in the way that there's a lot wrong with, I don't know, bad deli fried rice, but it's still fried rice, and it's still pretty good.
I was going to go back to the corned beef sandwich metaphor, which is mentioned in this book. It does, like, one of the first actions he does when he starts driving is he drove with one hand while eating a corned beef sandwich. And you know what? Even a bad corned beef sandwich, it's still good.
Yeah.
Yeah. So. I wish it would have been a Reuben, though. just a little bit of ethnicity in here that isn't pure snowy white would have been nice. But yeah.
Fair, but you ever try to drive while eating a Reuben? Like, you need to put the tarp down first.
That's a good point. I actually got one a couple days ago, and I made the mistake of ordering it with extra meat, which essentially means I want grease and Thousand Island dressing all over my hands. And it's a really difficult thing to eat, and I ended up eating it with a fork and knife and feeling really weird. By the way, everybody out there who owns a sandwich shop, a Reuben with pastrami is not a Reuben. That's a Rachel. Get it right or pay the price. Anyway.
Wow. Shots fired.
Hell Tanner's going to come and regulate on that ass.
Also, Thousand Island dressing is kind of gross.
I'm a sucker for it. But only in the context of Reubens and Big Macs.
Yeah.
Which is not saying anything positive about me, that's for sure.
Look, we like what we like. I, for example, kind of like this book. That's not great. You kind of like two uses for Thousand Island, and not the obvious sex use, so that's weird. But, you know, we're all just trying to make our way in this funny world.
Yeah, we are. And I think it's probably a good time for us to take a break and eat a greasy sandwich. So we'll be right back, and I promise to wash my hands thoroughly for 45 seconds. Welcome back. It's the second segment of the show where, unlike our hero, we're going to play some games and have some fun. We're not here just to be stoic and hate everything. We're going to have some good times. Nah.
Oh my god.
So,
how much would you have loved it if Hell Tanner said to somebody in the course of this book, "I'm not here to make friends"?
I mean, it wouldn't be out of place, and I would have loved it. So, yeah, that's the answer there.
Context would have made it faintly ridic, however.
So, we're going to start off this segment with the most darn to tarnation segment in podcasting history. This is Dramatic Readings. Music, please. By the way, this song is the most Damnation Alley song out of all of our jingles. Just wanted to point that out.
I think that's right. Although, you know, a partial vote for good old fashioned never do it anymore. Most famous fan.
Oh, that's true. I don't know. This one has the chug guitar that I associate with toxic masculinity.
Yeah. So. Fair.
I guess I'm going to go first, and I'm going to be reading from a section this is happening in Boston as our anti-hero is attempting to make his way across the continent with the cure to the plague. And there is a street preacher preaching the end times. However, there's also a bell that goes off every time somebody dies that keeps interrupting him. And in the book, that's just represented by, like, an underscore, like a redacted. But, Collision, I'd like to enlist your help. If you could play the role of the bell, I would appreciate it greatly.
Man, this is a long way to the diner to call me a ding-dong, Jay. But I'm happy to be your clapper anytime. I hope you know that.
Okay. That's good. Well, cool, because this holiday season, I'm getting a bell ringing group together. We're going to go door to door and annoy everyone. One second. Hell Tanner leaned against the car as he jingled his bell.
Hell Tanner stood sullenly in the orchestra pit, waiting for his cue. He knew he had only one chance to get this right. Crap, he thought. Triangle player is really a hard job.
Well, have you heard the... It's a YouTube video going around right now that I really love, and it's just the famous 11 hits from Stravinsky's Rite of Spring,
yeah,
but performed by like 100 different orchestras, so you can hear how kind of the difference a conductor makes and how a piece is arranged and performed. And you know, like, it's amazing the difference that does make. Like there are people who treat it like a timpani solo. There are people who treat it like the Psycho themes slowed down. And I also learned that when a lot of people are taught that, the way they're taught to count those 11 beats are Igor Stravinsky is a son of a bitch, which I really like. So, there you go.
Send me that YouTube video and I will link to it in the show notes, because that's the kind of value that I add.
It's actually really fun to listen to, but I'm also weird. And be aware that you're in for 9 minutes of one note. So, yeah.
I mean,
okay.
I'm not going to listen to it, but I'll put it in the show notes.
Okay, that's fair. I really like Rite of Spring, but I have part of it tattooed on me, so I better.
Sorry, I promise that will be the most hell Tanner I get on this episode.
I won't listen to it, but I'll put it in the show notes. All right, so here we go. The bell drowned his every seventh word, but since he had said his words more than 7 times over, nothing was really lost upon the 8 steadfast listeners who huddled on the benches before him. Others came, stood in the distance near the streetlight, listened for a time, hurried on, for a light rain was beginning to fall, and that which he was saying was not altogether new. His clerical collar was frayed, and there was a bandage about his right hand, which seemed dirtier each time that he gestured with it, which was often. His beard seemed recent, his black suit ancient. The marks are upon my body.
Bong!
They tell me my days are...
Ding!
He said, as his eyes as dark as moist and it's the night, and the rain as glistening as the street light. And I say that it is...
Jingle!
Judgment. We are all of us.
Bong!
And every one of us, man
Ring!
and child, judged in these the...
Ding!
Days and found to be guilty.
Bong!
What caused this thing to...
Tintinabulation that so musically wells.
Upon us, you may be sure.
Ding!
And nothing else. You see it.
Clang!
Every day of your lives, and now is angry, my brethren, for the...
Ding!
Of which we are all mutually...
Dong!
You know this. I know it.
Ding!
Tells us of these days. Can
Dong!
look about us and fail to...
Ding!
That the very words of the...
Ring!
Are becoming an actuality in our...
Buzz!
Of course not. This is because...
Ding!
Ran like a beast too long and corrupting, and men turned to...
Ring!
No wonder then that the beast
Ding!
with 7 heads and 10 horns,
Bing bong!
them rises up from the ocean. The 7 seals have been broken.
Blong!
The 4 horsemen of the,
Ding!
whose names we all know as
Dong!
that dreaded ravener of the countryside,
Wing!
who followeth in the wake of him,
Chime!
who lays his hand upon us,
Tambourine noise!
the final terrible one who killeth.
Ding!
All of these be here tonight.
Bell!
Has judged us, and now only
Ring!
can save us from the awful
Dong!
that lies upon all mankind. Yes,
Ring!
is the answer, my brethren. True,
Dong!
may save us still from the
Ding!
into which will be cast all
Dong!
who bear the mark of the
Ding!
upon their hands and their foreheads.
Dong!
Has said so in the holy.
Ring!
Can we think otherwise? Can we this? You know it in your hearts.
Ding!
Let us join together and...
Dong!
He bowed his head then, winced as he clasped his hands, and continued to fight with the bell, for he knew that the odds were 6-1 in his favor. How long, oh my!
Dong!
He cried, until mankind will see the...
Dong!
And the heavens were full of signs, cryptic and undecipherable, as the blue lightning stalked from pole to pole. Wondering, he licked the rain from his lips and swallowed to ease the dryness of his throat. I have never wished more since we started doing this quarantine thing that we were in the same room, because that's really going to require some editing to line up thanks to video call latency. Hopefully it's worth it. I hope you enjoyed it at home, and if not, pretend you did, because it's going to be a lot of work.
Yeah.
All right. Anyway.
Between video latency and my shitty timing, that's quite a lift. So, sorry.
Not sorry. This is going to be great. Everyone's going to love it. I'm so excited.
Yeah, it's gonna be great. Definitely wish I'd looked up synonyms for like bell noises before we did that, because
I think
kind of a lot
bong
there.
and gong are about all you got.
I mean, there's ring. There's I should have done
Ding.
ring-a-ding-ding. That would have been good.
Oh, that would have been a good one. Yeah. Oh, you could have done ring ding dong, ring a ding 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 dong. Keep their heads ringing. That would have been possible too.
You could have done that. I could not have done that. I guess if I'd been thinking about it, I could have tried for that really scary falsetto thing in the Bell song, Christmas Carol,
yeah.
that I like a lot. But I don't think I've got any words for that.
It's okay. I think we had plenty of Bell's synonyms, and this is the quality content you tune in for, folks. So, Collision, it is now your turn to dramatically read a thing, and I promise I won't say bong unless you ask me to.
I really appreciate that. So I'm
just kidding, bong.
Waka waka. Hold on, I'm looking for it. I thought. She pulled off her boots and rubbed her feet. He gave her another cigarette. Hey, Corny, I just thought, there's a medicine chest over there to your right. Yeah, that's it. It should have some damn kind of salve in it you can smear on your face to take the bite out. She found a tube of something and rubbed some of it on her cheek, smiled slightly, and replaced it. Feel any better? Yes, thanks. The stones began to fall, the blue to spread. The sky pulsed, grew brighter. I don't like the looks of this one. I don't like the looks of any of them. It seems like there's been an awful lot this past week. Yeah, I've heard it said that maybe the winds are dying down, that the sky might be purging itself. That'd be nice, said Tanner. Then we might be able to see it the way it used to look. Blue all the time, and with clouds. You know about clouds? I heard about them. White, puffy things that just sort of drift across. Sometimes gray. They don't drop anything except rain, and not always that. Yeah, I know. You ever see any out in L.A.? No. The yellow streaks began, and the black lines writhed like snakes. The stonefall rattled heavily upon the roof and the hood. More water began to fall, and a fog rose up. Tanner was forced to slow, and then it seemed as if sledgehammers beat upon the car. We won't make it, she said. The hell you say? This thing's built to take it. And what's that? Off in the distance. The bridge, she said, moving forward. That's it. Pull off the road to the left and go down. That's a dry riverbed beneath. Then the lightning began to fall. It flamed, flashed about them. They passed a burning tree, and there were still fish in the roadway. Tanner turned left as he approached the bridge. When he hit the damp riverbed, he turned right. He nosed it in under the bridge, and they were all alone there. Some waters trickled past them, and the lightning continued to flash. The sky was a shifting kaleidoscope, and constant came the thunder. He could hear a sound like hail on the bridge above them. We're safe, he said, and killed the engine. Are the doors locked? They do it automatically. Tanner turned off the outside lights. Wish I could buy you a drink, besides coffee. Coffee'd be good. Okay, it's on the way. And he cleaned out the pot, and filled it, and plugged it in. They sat there and smoked as the storm raged. I'm going to skip ahead. He reached out and touched her hand, then squeezed it. I can buy you a drink. What do you mean? She drew a plastic flask from the right side pocket of her jacket. She uncapped it and passed it to him. Here. He took a mouthful and gulped it, coughed, took a second, then handed it back. Great. You're a woman of unsuspected potential and like that. Thanks. I'm going to skip ahead while she gives him a lengthy back rub. He straightened up, leaned back. Then he reached out, took the flask, and had another drink. She took a small sip when he passed it to her. The Furies rode about them, but the bridge above stood the siege. Tanner turned off the lights. Let's make it, he said, and he seized her and drew her to him. And then, yeah, that's it. Like, there's actually no sex scene here. Like, but he comes so hard that he makes the storm stop, which I think is pretty boss on his part. Or maybe he makes her, or helps her, come so hard. That's what happens. So, way to be GGG, Hell Tanner.
Riding the storm out in the most literal possible sense.
For sure. And it is explicit at a time when that was not par for the course, that she consents, or, in the words of this book, does not resist.
Yeah, and unfortunately, those are kind of the same thing in this book, which is rough, but whatever. I like the character of Cornelia. Everyone calls her Corny. He kills the rest of her motorcycle gang because they're attacking him, but he stops to rescue her because, quote unquote, you're a chick, which little questionable. But they immediately develop a relationship, and then 2 pages later she gets shot, and he buries her with a message that, I wish I had it looked up, but it's literally like, I don't know much about her, but she was Hell Tanner's woman, and I loved her.
Oh, I believe I do have that open right now, Jay.
It's a very 8th grade approach to romance, I would say, or depending on whenever you first had a sexual experience, but yeah.
Oh, yeah, so 57th grade. Anywho, he wheeled her machine over, set the kickstand, and stood it upon the grave. With his knife, he scratched on the fender. Her name was Cornelia, and I don't know how old she was, or where she came from, or what her last name was, but she was Hell Tanner's girl, and I love her. And the thing is, unless you signed that Hell Tanner, you kind of sound like maybe you didn't get very far with her, because, bro, you don't even know her last name.
Yeah, that could just be like some weird incel that's been, like, following them around forever. Yeah, not cool.
Yeah, no, TNC, B. That's not cool, bro.
Exactly. So, you want to do another game?
I would love to do some more games, because, as you pointed out, we're not like Hell Tanner. We don't live in any kind of nightmarish hellscape racked by plague and environmental collapse, so we've got time for that kind of thing. Anywho, let's play one we haven't played in a long time. My favorite underheard song, I think, it's Rippin' It Off.
Ripping it off, ripping it off. You say get inspired, but I say rip it off.
All right, so Ripping It Off, kind of pretty self-explanatory. We're going to talk about, the very obvious influences at work in this book. And I think I'd also like to talk about the very obvious influences this book has had, so we could kind of do a dual round here.
Looking forward, looking back, like we've got view screens on both sides of our vehicle.
That's true, much like Hell Tanner.
I'm sorry, much like who?
Hell Tanner.
That's it.
Yeah, sorry.
That's all right.
I said it all wrong. Much like Hell Tanner.
I'm getting really strong Max Power vibes. Like, you must not be afraid to say Hell Tanner.
Hell Tanner. I can't do it. I've always tried to do the death metal voice. I can't do it. Hell Tanner. Okay.
Hi, I'm Hell Tanner.
You may know me from my star turn in the CBS sitcom Different Strokes. All right, anyway.
This summer on FX, Billy West is the voice of Hell Tanner. That's one for the voice actor heads out there. I hope both of you like and subscribe.
We promise, no Wes Welker involved. Why don't you start us off with what you think this book's obvious, quote-unquote, influences were?
Yeah, so, I think it's basically just a Western where you get a little bit more of the lonely guy riding a horse around town. It's very much Shane and a little bit of Man Who Shot Liberty Valance. So
Ooh, yeah.
I kind of liked those vibes. Although, I gotta be honest, I wasn't thinking nearly as much about what influenced this. So what did you have?
I had a book I actually read pretty young because it was in the school library, and I looked it up. I had to compare dates. It was written before it. It's an author named George R. Stewart, and he had a book called Earth Abides, which is basically the exact same post-apocalyptic road trip premise, except with a college student instead of a nihilist biker.
What?
And it has an actual ending instead of Poochie returning to his home planet.
What?
So, yeah. Yep. It's about a dude going across the country in search of civilization after a nuclear holocaust, basically. So, yeah.
Well, tune in 2 weeks from now when we'll be doing that book, which sounds awesome.
It's actually pretty smart and enjoyable. I don't want to go too hard on it because it's been a long time since I read it, and there could be awful things in it, but I remembered really enjoying it at the time.
Okay, so looking forward, I think we're both agreed that this is a none too subtle influence on a lot of things. So what did you think is out there ripping this off?
Obviously, and I mean, people are probably screaming this if they listen to the show right now. But the video game series Fallout is this book, basically. There's also Borderlands, which is very similar right down to the shitty nihilistic attitude of the characters that you control. So, yeah, both of those are kind of like apocalyptic road trip books where you run into weird ramshackle civilizations and things like that. And just the scenery and the way things look is very similar to the way things are described in this book. So I think, the Fallout series of games, which I think they're up to like 5 of them now, and the Borderlands series games, I think, are huge. But there's no end of post-apocalyptic video games that I really feel like took a lot from this book. I mean, Roger Zelazny was a very popular author with people my age, in the 80s. And a lot of those people went on, like me, to work in the video game industry. And so I think it looms large over a lot of games in particular. And then, of course, there's Cormac McCarthy's The Road, which is a pretty similar story, but I don't know, written very differently.
I would be surprised if McCarthy read Zelazny, but I would be pleasantly surprised if he had. And that's not because I'm casting any asparagus on Roger Zelazny. It's just that I don't think McCarthy reads that way. I don't know. I could be wrong.
Zelazny is a nerd author. Like, most of the people I know who enjoy Roger Zelazny would fall into people who are pretty nerdy and pretty aware of it, for sure. Myself included. So, yeah. I don't know if Cormac McCarthy is I'm going to sit down with this Roger Zelazny book. Like, I'd like to imagine him being like, ooh, 9 Princes in Amber, but I don't think that's the case.
I just wish there were more trees filled with babies. So, yeah, the two things that I thought this really influenced the most are both, very formative media experiences for me. Obviously, the Mad Max series owes a little something to this. But most of all for me, the thing that I really thought of first was Escape from New York, which I think was probably my first favorite movie. I have these very clear, very young memories of seeing it at a screening at my dad's drive-in. And I also have very clear, very intense memories of loving it so much I got a black plastic eye patch from Woolworths, and I wore it for days until the headaches got so bad I had to stop.
I just wanted to look like Snake, man.
I just wanted to look like Snake Plissken. So yeah, that without this, I don't know if Snake Plissken happens. So, on that level, I'm extraordinarily glad that this little book exists so that it could later be ripped off.
Ripped off. Okay, let's move to one more. We didn't talk about this beforehand, but I think we should do it anyway because we always do it. So this is If This Were a Song. Here's some music.
The subject has some words, but not a melody and no rhythm at all. It's playing out with me, so we read all along. And it's probably wrong, it got us think about what if this were a song. What would it sound like?
All right, so we're going to try to condense the essence of this book into musical form and figure out exactly which popular song, or maybe not that popular song, this book would be if it were a song. Do you have any ideas, or would you like me to go first?
Why don't you go first?
Okay, so here's the thing about this book, right? It thinks it's a lot tougher than it is. It definitely gives the impression that it's supposed to be menacing, but is kind of comical. And it's obsessed with Nazi memorabilia. So I would say this could be anything by Motorhead.
Zing!
And I'm glad Lemmy's not alive to find me and punch me. Anyway.
So, odd Lemmy connection in my real answer. My fake answer is, okay, so this is short, kinda rockin', extremely dumb. So I was going to go with Dot Your Eyes by Five Finger Death Punch, which I still think is the flat-out funniest piece of music I've ever heard. But
Fucking love the punch, bro.
effing love the punch. But my real answer is, like I said, it's got a Lemmy connection. It's a little thing called Damnation Alley by a little band called Hawkwind.
Holy shit, Hawkwind had a song called Damnation Alley?
Yeah, Guess what it's about?
This book?
Anywho. And for those not in the know, Lemmy was, for a while, the bass player in Hawkwind, and before that was the roadie for Hawkwind.
Wow.
And that's your prog fact to grow on for this episode.
Yeah, so basically the answer to this question is Lemmy.
Yeah, Lemmy.
Something Lemmy made, if this were a song.
Nice.
I think we got time for one more game.
I think we do, Jay. And I would like to subject you to one if you have that time.
I do have that time.
So, I have to ask you, what was your favorite?
What is your fave? What is your fave? When you're presented with a list of options, what is your fave?
So as we've talked about, this is a little bit of a strange book because in one way, almost nothing happens, but in another way, it's very episodic. There's a lot of little interactions and little incidents and a lot of digressions. So, of the incidents, interactions, digressions, etc. episodes, what was your favorite?
So what was my favorite piece of, non-plot related ephemera? Is that basically the question here?
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say, I think it's actually kind of a great little attempt at a joke that for, the first quarter of the book, Hell Tanner keeps telling people he's the only guy who's ever made a successful mail run to Albuquerque when he used to work for the post office. And, he's the only guy who could brave it and all that stuff. He gets assigned a partner who he loses in unfortunate circumstances later on in the book. But while they're driving, they have a conversation that goes like this. Hell Tanner says, "What do you do?" And Matt, is that his name?
Oh, I can't remember what his name is. I think it's not Matt.
I think it's Matt.
It's like George or
Eric?
some shit. Could be Eric.
It's something normal like that, whatever. He says, "I've got your old job. I run the mail to Albuquerque." Zing!
Hey-oh!
Are you kidding? No. And then this is the part I really like. "I'll be damned. Is Gorman still the supervisor?" "He retired last year on disability." "I'll be damned. That's funny. Listen, down at Albuquerque, do you ever go to a bar called Pedro's?" "I've been there." "Have they still got a little blonde girl that plays the piano named Margaret?" "No." "Oh. They got some guy now. Fat fella wears a big ring on his left hand. Tanner nodded and downshifted as he began the ascent of a steep hill.
I actually kind of like that. It was like one of the actual human moments in a book that it thinks it's depicting something too tough for it. But, like, yeah, those are the questions you have when you find out somebody has your old job.
I really love the fact that, like, up until this point, he's like, I'm the only one who made that. Without me, they couldn't make that. And then it turns out the guy riding with him, that's his job.
Yeah. Especially because the
and
guy...
Then to go on to be like, so how's Gorman doing? Oh, he's great. You know, like, what about Gigi? Are her kids growing up pretty good? Like, you know, like, what are they doing? It turns into genial work chat very quickly. And yeah. I enjoyed that.
Well, especially because his co-pilot guy... who you mentioned he loses in unfortunate circumstances, which is an interesting way to describe. They get in a fist fight, and hell, Tanner beats him into a coma.
Yeah.
But that guy is described as such a normie, and yet then they can, like, downshift the conversation into a pleasant place. It's kind of cool, actually. I liked it, anyway.
It shows you the human side of hell.
Oh my god. There is, by the way, in case you're wondering, did Roger Zelazny have a high school education? A moment where he riffs very briefly on the hell is other people conclusion of No Exit. So that happens. But that's not my favorite digression. No, my favorite digression is the excruciatingly stoned 4+ page sentence, and it is one sentence I looked, about the weather. And you may think, surely a stoned man couldn't write a 4-page sentence, but I'm going to read you the introduction to it. And you make your own call. And I loved it. Massive high point. Setting without plot or characters. Put a frame around it if you would, and call it what you would, if you would. Chaos, creation, nightmare of the periodic table, or, open bracket, fill in your own close bracket. It looks like this. And then the following sentence is 4 fucking pages long about the weather. It's incredible. Now, I didn't read it. I invoked the italicized prose clause in my contract.
Guess what? You're not alone.
But it's incredible. I ain't got time for that shit, but I love it.
It is very much, too, like, this is in the middle of heavily narrative passages that involve a lot of characters doing a lot of things, and Zelazny just takes a little break to speak directly to you, the reader.
Yeah.
And, I appreciate that kind of attention.
Yeah, no, it's nice. It's nice to know that he cares.
Yeah. It is. Well, I can't think of any clever way to segue into a break here, so let's go ahead and do that. Let's pull over and refill at the gas station in Salt Lake City, which is apparently the only gas station of the entire continent of North America. And we'll be right back to close things out.
I hope I can buy some trucker speed.
All right, welcome back. Unfortunately, our road trip is over. We've dropped off the drugs in Boston. They made a giant statue of us to honor us, and we've spray painted foul words all over it, and then took off on a motorbike with no forwarding address.
Damn.
And in case you're wondering, that is how this book ends. We're done. We're done with Roger Zelazny's Damnation Alley. Well, kind of. Patreon subscribers will get a different experience. But we'll talk more about that later.
It'll be reading all the sex scenes.
Yeah, nothing but. And by all the sex scenes, we mean both. This is the point of the show where we recommend things we've read recently that we think that you might actually enjoy. So here is that recommendations tune.
Not only venom and spite, sometimes with sweetness and light, and we always end the episode by telling you about a thing we like. Recommendations.
So yeah, recommendations. I've been reading a lot lately. I went through a real heavy video game period at the beginning of quarantine. They've kind of lost their luster in a lot of ways, except until in exactly 1 hour when the new Paper Mario drops. I'm really excited for that. Got it pre-purchased, pre-downloaded. I just have to wait 50 minutes to play it. It's so hard. But yeah, so I decided I was just going to read a lot. I'm between jobs at the moment by choice. I'm taking a new job, and I decided I was going to take a week and a half off in between, kind of recalibrate. So I've been reading a lot of novels, and one of the novels that I read I really enjoyed was called Blue Light Yokohama, and this is interesting because this is very much written in the style of a Japanese mystery novel, which people know that I love, but it's written by a fella named Nicolás Obregón, who he's born in England with a Spanish father and a French mother, and at first I was like, this is kind of weird, this feels a little bit like cultural tourism, but what's interesting is his main character, Inspector Awada, is a Japanese man who was born to mixed parentage, went to school in the U.S., and then moved back to Japan to work for the police force to solve crimes as a detective. So you can tell there's a lot of his personal experience as someone kind of, I don't know how to describe it, someone with his foot in both worlds. And it's also a really good mystery, but I found it to be just really compelling. It's not a short book. I read it in a couple days. I can't recommend it enough. Definitely there's some gore. It's a murder mystery, comes with the territory, but the solution was genuinely surprising. And I thought the characters were well drawn. I think the character of Iwata himself is very, very interesting and kind of a unique inversion of the damaged detective who cares too much about the force and all this kind of stuff. So, yeah, I would recommend, if you like mystery novels at all, let alone the Japanese Shin Hankaku stuff that I'm prone to recommending, you should check this out. Blue Light Yokohama. It's won several awards. It's a really good book. So yeah, there you go.
Nice. Unlike you, Jay, I have not been reading shit, nor have I even been finishing shit. I tried real hard to watch the Highlander ripoff that Netflix conned people into thinking was going to be good, and I was even very excited about it because I am extremely there for anything directed by the director of Love and Basketball, but I had to turn it off because it was so goddamn boring. Anywho, I'm returning to my roots, and I'm going to recommend, yes, that's right, an article I read on the internet.
Woo!
Yeah! And it's called Letterheads. It's by Sarah Young, or Jong, I don't know. I am probably butchering it, for which I apologize. I did actually try to look up how she pronounces it and couldn't find it, so I failed, but at least I tried. Anyway, it is a response to the incredibly stupid quote-unquote free speech letter that ran in Harper's, which I used to represent and used to like a couple weeks ago, and it's well worth your time because I thought it had a very humane and very incisive at the same time take on the controversy. And there will, as always, be a link to it in the show notes.
That's good. I don't even want to get into that letter, but that's just going down a path that we would continue to go down for way too long. But
yeah.
Pro tip, if people make fun of you on Twitter because you said something stupid, that does not mean that they should go to jail.
Yeah.
Okay, anyway.
Sometimes you just got to take the L, you know?
Yeah. Anyway, moving on from that, correspondence from you, the listeners. It's an important part of the show, for us at least. Hopefully for you at home, you enjoy this. But you know what? Honestly, I don't give a shit because I'm tough like hell, Tanner. I just like to answer letters. So here's a song.
A, letter B, letter C, letter D, letter E, letter M, letter G, letter, got a lot of letters.
All right. So speaking of taking the L and speaking of alleys, I received the following piece of feedback from a longtime Twitter friend of mine via direct message in response to our last blockbuster episode, The Coven.
You can't say it the right way now either, can you?
I can, but I'd like to ask you a question, Jay. Why would I?
Yeah, why would you?
And this alley-themed direct message goes like this. Blues Alley is actually legit. Real jazz. No ponytail blues guys. They book big names, but they also showcase a lot of young local talent, especially black women vocalists. It's the only reason I ever set foot in Georgetown. So some people may think that means we were wrong to question the existence of Blues Alley. I, however, believe that The Coven was such a blockbuster and so influential that somebody actually opened up a club named after it after the fact.
I'm just confused here because I've been to New Orleans Jazz Fest a couple times, and it's all blues artists, and yet the club named Blues Alley books jazz people in Washington, D.C. People, get your genres straight, please.
I mean, yeah, let me whitely argue about this particular genre gatekeeping. All right, so thank you for that piece of advice, and I guess if I were in D.C. and it weren't the end times, maybe I would go have a drink at Blues Alley and think, wow, a book I read inspired all of this, and that would be amazing.
It's pretty awesome. Pretty awesome.
Yeah. Our second of three letters on the day begins like this: overdue and disposable well-wishing. And it is from Neil, or possibly Niall. I'm not quite sure. I'm sorry. Fake last name. And it's quite a long letter, so I'm going to excerpt it heavily. But it goes a little something like this. Hi, guys. I've been compelled on a number of IDEO occasions to write you. But then instead, I get distracted, make a sandwich, and kick the can down the road. Well, that day has come. I have listened to many hours of IDEOTV while either working or just trying to fill the void with kindred voices and references to things I have a profound fondness for. I'm going to skip most of the next sentence, but it concludes, so I will try to be concise. Good try. It doesn't always happen. So
I can relate.
Yeah. Skip hair metal, skip DS9 references. And it ends like this, and I just had to read this part. You probably hear it a lot, JW, but your segue jingles are outstanding. High Points, Low Points has a very 80s Transformers cartoon sort of vibe.
High Points, Low Points, I appreciate it, although I think that wasn't necessarily my intention. I'm glad that you got something positive from it.
I mean, we certainly love the 80s Transformers for some reason, even after watching the movie for a bonus episode.
Yeah.
Letters is hypnotic. Would love an entire alphabet version. So that's pretty cool.
The extended club mix that goes all the way to Z.
Wow. Please keep up the great work. Let me know when the crabs are in season, and I'll saddle up.
Awesome.
So I thought that was really great. And then one last letter, and this I just had to read because, one thing that I sometimes say is if you do a job while you listen to the show, write us in and, talk about that, because for some reason I find that endlessly fascinating, even when we don't necessarily name it on the show or respond, because we do get a lot of emails. The other thing that I really like when we get an email is a question, so we can have a conversation on the air about it. Because, feedback like, this is great. Okay, thank you. I really appreciate that. Or, you suck. Well, I don't appreciate that. Anyway, we can't really talk about it on the show, but what we can talk about on the show are questions. And very old school friend of the show, Jessica, fake last name, sent us one message that could not be more chock full of questions. So let's address these. I don't know anything about wrestling, but I do know New Jack has a book. Did you know he has a book? Why do I know he has a book? And those are the questions that I personally ask myself, and I'm glad that other people are out there asking them as well.
Okay, so I did know New Jack has a book because a potential future guest had suggested doing it, and I was like, no. Because New Jack the wrestler was involved in some horrifying incidents that I don't want to describe in detail, and I'm sure they make up the vast majority of this book. He put several people into the hospital who were not performers by calling them into the ring and then bodily abusing them. Just not a good guy. I did know he had a book. Yeah.
So I don't know as much about wrestling as you do, and some of the listeners also don't know as much about wrestling as you do. Is that bad?
It's very bad, and
Okay.
I'm not going to get into the details, but there's a thing called the mass transit incident, and if you are of a strong stomach, you could look up New Jack mass transit, and you'll see right away why this is probably not a book we'll be doing for the show.
Okay.
So yeah, but
Okay,
I don't know why you know, listener.
Second
that
question.
he has a book, other than maybe you're on Twitter a lot and people got really excited when they heard about the New Jack book. But yeah, I don't know.
I have two questions. One, who is New Jack?
All right. So New Jack was a wrestler in ECW as well as a bunch of hardcore promotions prior to that. He's also name-checked in the Weezer song El Scorcho, a dubious honor at best. And he was mostly known for being a way over-the-top caricature of a African-American gang member. The issue is that a lot of this kind of did carry over into his real life. He has an extensive criminal record that involves a lot of violence and a lot of nasty stuff. I just don't see a lot of humor coming from that book. He is a guy who lived his gimmick, and his gimmick was being brutal. So, yeah. There you go.
Our last question. Does he or did he swing?
He did not swing.
Was at least his finishing move the New Jack
swing? You would wish, but it was probably more something like New Jack cuts your forehead with a razor.
All right, so let that be a lesson to us all. Be careful what you wish for, but write us letters with questions in them, because that's a lot of fun. If you wish to write us a letter, you can do it anytime you want. Just hit us up at I don't even own a television @gmail.com. If you'd like to rate and review the show, that would help us out a lot too. Although I am a Luddite, and I believe strongly that the best thing you can do if you like the show and want it to keep doing well and can keep growing, and that's just bother people about it. And I know it's hard to bother people right now because we're all kind of on lockdown, except those of us who are unlucky enough to be forced to work, and then we're terrified that we're going to get ourselves or somebody else sick. So why not lighten the mood and pester people personally or electronically about a soul-enriching experience like a podcast about bad books?
Start a Zoom chat with 30 other people and just be like, hey, check out this podcast. It'll go over super well.
Yeah, sneak a t-shirt onto that Zoom chat. Shit. steal the logo off of our website and, like, put that as your digital background. I don't know. I don't have good ideas. But if you want to help us out a little bit, you can do so by those methods, or you can also support us on Patreon if you've got any extra money. And if you don't, trust me, I get it. But if you do, you can find us on patreon.com/IDEOTV. A monthly donation of $5 or more gets you a bonus episode every month. And this month's, I think, is going to be another corker.
Yeah, I think we're going back to the well of doing a movie review, and it's going to tie very closely into this episode. So, yeah, if you liked us talking about this book, you're probably going to want to hear that. So, check it out. However, please know, whether you donate or you don't donate, we appreciate you for listening, and hopefully you will continue to do so for a long and fruitful time.
Yeah, and we should mention, because I didn't earlier, there's plenty of free stuff to listen to over on that Patreon. So, hey, if you haven't checked it out, why not check it out? Fucking treat yourself. Times are tough. Listen to some goof on stuff.
Agreed. There is no one goofiner than us.
True dat. True dat. Anyway, Jay, have you got anything else before we hop back into the murder van, pop the clutch, rev the engine? I don't know if that's the right order. I suck and don't really drive stick.
No, not really. Just, definitely, the world is still a mess. Do what you can to help. Like, if you have extra money to donate to charitable causes that are good, just because the media has toned down the coverage doesn't mean that there aren't still protests happening daily. There's tons of bad things in the world going on that people are taking a stance against, and I think it's up to us to, take a stance with them and help them as much as possible. So please, use your extra thought cycles and perhaps, even some of your extra spending income to support causes that, are about things like ending police brutality and, creating a more equal society for everyone and maybe getting rid of this horrible virus. There's a lot going on. The world needs us. It needs us to step up. So step the fuck up, people. And that's about it. That's all I have to say.
Can I say something?
Sure.
Hell yeah.
All right, now make sure to ride the crab all the way across the United States.
Let's ride that crab and chase down hell, Tanner.